Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of Delve Requisite right here on Proficiency Bonus. We are down a couple of people this week. They've been replaced by mean portraits, as has become my new tradition. But that's not going to stop us from plowing ahead. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsors, Little Dragon Corp and Cardboard Castle Games. Little Dragon Corp is a Canadian-based dice company. You can check out their website by typing !Little Dragon in chat during tonight's stream at any point. And Cardboard Castle Games is a brick-and-mortar tabletop gaming store and card store in Evans, Georgia. But they also have a robust online presence. You can check out their website by typing !CCG in chat at any point during the stream. Thank you to both of those sponsors. So, let's jump right into it. It's probably going to be a shorter session tonight, I think. I don't want to go through too much, since we are down a few people, but we got...
Good. Some of us have Baldur's Gate to get back to.
I need to hold my actual D&D game.
I need to be done playing
one.
D&D.
Some of us
I need
worked
to be
12
done playing
hours
D&D
today.
to go back to D&D.
Hey, can we wrap this D&D up real quick? I got some D&D I gotta get to.
I got some other D&D.
No problem. So, last time we saw Walter's flashback story. Walter, who has been replaced by a dog that looks like Justin Bieber for today's stream. We saw his origin story, essentially. He was killed trying to intercede against some grave robbers that stole something very important from the family crypt of Zavarand Moxham, the head of the Moxham Mercantile and Trading Organization, in exchange for giving him his life back and hunting down the thieves who stole his precious goods. Walter made a pact, and that is how he became the Walter that we know today. We finished the session with Walter sealing a new pact, an amended pact with Moxham, essentially stating that if he follows through with this mission that you guys have all been on and reconnects the world heart of Egeria, Moxham will consider his contract fulfilled and cut him loose. He also charged up one of the ghost lanterns that you guys have had with essentially supercharged it with a special brand of Moxham Trading and Mercantile Necromancer battery power, telling Walter that it should do the trick to power one of those devices that operates the Star Spires that you guys know that you will need. So with that in hand, Walter used the newly upgraded Wayfinder staff. Is that the name of his Wayfinder shovel? I guess I should say. Went and visited with his family, and we will return to our story the following day as you guys all finish your long rests and your preparations, and he returns to Terra Libra to meet up with all of you in the morning. He has his shovel at the ready. He basically tells you guys, now that he's used it a little bit, he's got a little bit more of a feel for it. Something about the nature of this shard of a world seed, of a world heart that he has affixed to his Wayfinder staff, basically allows him to teleport you guys anywhere on the planet that he wants. Though he does say it seems a little bit more difficult for him to precision open a portal somewhere if it's not a place he's familiar with already. So he was able to basically go directly into Moxham's study because he's been in that room. He was able to go directly home. He was able to come directly back here. with some trial and error, he found that like trying to go some places that he either had not been before, was not super familiar with, he found there was a little bit of a margin of error up to like it seemed like a few hundred yards. But by and large, you guys essentially, he's like, we can go anywhere instantaneously, it seems.
Well done, Walter. And Aylar's going to hand him a small pack stuff that he'd gathered either early this morning or late last night. Rope, some pitons, grappling hook. He's handed them off to everybody. Like, you know, nobody's been in there. Nobody's been in the capital for like 1,500 years, besides a few members of the Radiant Dawn. Chances are they haven't kept up the maintenance.
Fair enough. Walter, like, he says to you, he's like, "Are we going to Lira first?"
Rowan?
I think that would give us at least a chance to get any information about how bad it's gotten out there, or if there's any news of movement from the shades.
Kind of nods, and he goes, just because Jason confirmed this with me, he goes, and he like points at his spooky eyes. He's like, if we could fix this, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think Grand Marshal Andesius might be the one who might be a bit more equipped to point us in the right direction. About that, there's more space there for prayer and reflection if we take a day or so. Apologies for any panic or bad habits that come back instantaneously once I step foot on those grounds. It will depend upon who we run into.
I mean, so long as you're not going to start randomly smiting people like me, Brom. I mean, I know Brom kind of deserves it from time to time, but
I was never one like the others, in a sense.
Oh, so we just have to worry about everybody else there.
No, you actually have to worry about them coming for me more than them coming for you. The whole branded as a traitor thing. Yeah, it'll be fun. Let's go. Rowan has this look of like, we're gonna die.
Well, there's like,
that's all right.
sure.
We went back to my home. I have a death mark against me there. Why not go back to a place where you got thrown out? It'll be
Pretty
great.
Sure, I'm the only paladin in millennia stupid enough to get excommunicated and then decide to waltz back in. I don't. At least, if Malark has done it, he went with a fucking dragon. So you know. Yeah. Maybe we'll find the whole place burned down. Let's take a ride.
That's okay. There's probably been plenty of people who didn't get excommunicated who deserved it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, that vaguely reminds me, and I look at Aylar because I know he's been the one looking at this the most or tracking this the most. We can see if anyone's heard about Nula while we're there. I doubt it, but that's where I last saw her. Before you
Doubt
all
it
saw
as
her.
well, but be nice to find out that she's all right. I hope that that dragon called all they did was, convince her, Corey's over there, and sent her, like, I don't know, to the far side of Egeria, rather than actively killed her. Which case, they're on the list. Save the world first, then they're on the list.
We'll find
All right.
out.
I'm willing to bet somebody here has coordinates for Lira, so we don't have to worry about. Oh, you do.
Oh, look at that! Saved us a trip.
Rowan
Walter's
has.
like, yeah, if you where do you like? Where are we trying to? Where are we trying to land? Are we trying to like go to, like outside the city? You trying to like drop into like their like bathroom and surprise them?
Absolutely
What do you?
not. I think.
Maybe I vote for not the bathroom.
Yeah, me too.
What time of year is it in regards to their usual rounding up of new soldiers to the cause? Are we hitting around that time, or
Trying to think what
have
time
we
of
missed
year
it?
it is right now. I think canonically it's like. I think canonically it's like fall is in like mid swing right now. Probably not something you can like set your clock by. I think certainly it's possible that like there might be, like there's always pilgrims coming to the city and like new people coming in to like to look to join, but I don't know that you can like, if your thought is like let's appear and like get in with a caravan or something like that.
No, it was just to see if the city would be busier than usual more than anything.
I mean, probably like considering that the eastern border of Mithlande is currently at like an active contested territory in like a war. They're like, you can assume that everything, maybe less so Lira than other stuff, as like it's way west and also terrible generally. Maybe less so, but like it is very much likely that the city has seen refugee. People have probably made their way that way, try to get as far from the conflict as possible.
Rowan would then suggest that if we go to the marketplace out right near the keep where donations are given to the Dawn, there's usually a couple of soldiers out there, and usually they're just there to check boxes and less dicks about it. I think that would work best for a place to show up without getting swords in our faces. And we wouldn't have far to go after that.
All right.
Fair enough. He's like, okay. Is there anything else we got to do? Brom, you got to pop over to the Valon to get some of them bagels with the water. We got, what's the last call for side shenanigans before we go. He's like, anyone?
Good.
Pretty sure this is my side shenanigans.
He's like, already? He's like, okay, gather around. He's like, I technically haven't taken anybody besides myself yet. So, just...
You took Torian on a brief trip with his help.
No, that was just the regular staff. That was before the, He's like, it's probably fine. In the most Walter statement of all time, it's probably fine. He says, just like go in the entrance and like go right to the exit. Don't stray off, or you might end up in some kind of a permanent night void filled with the screams of the damned or something.
Walter, please just teleport.
Tap! He like clacks his shovel on the ground, and he opens a portal. You can see on the other side he's like a little ways down a street off to the side of like the square that you described to him that he was aiming for, but like pretty close.
Rowan will lead the way through, recognizing it as the location. She'll just walk through calmly.
Walter like gestures everybody through ahead of him. Oz has to like duck. The portal's not tall enough.
Taylor heads through. looking straight ahead. He does not want to look to either side in case there's, I don't know, the devil.
Unimaginable horrors.
Yeah. He's got enough horrors in his head. He doesn't need ones that he hasn't imagined yet.
Okay. Easy enough. You kind of, it's like walking down a short hallway where you do have the sense that surrounding you, unseen on all sides, are unimaginable horrors, but you make the transit as Walter steps through behind everybody. He like releases the magic, and both ends of the rift like seal, and you are in Lira. It's mid-morning. The streets around are like fairly busy. There is like kind of a bunch of people standing around, like looking at the five of you that just like walked through a hole in space-time in the middle of the street.
Don't worry about it.
Make a persuasion roll
Jesus
with
Christ.
disadvantage.
You're gonna get us killed for just saying.
My
stupid-
physical dice are still downstairs.
Oh jeez.
Oh, God,
Persuasion, you said?
Yeah, with disadvantage.
Neither of them were great. 8 was the lower.
8 was the lower.
Friggin' D&D Beyond dice.
You
Go get your actual dice.
Yeah, dice.
Wait, I have other.
Wait a minute. How is your
dice.
persuasion? What is your plus to
Yeah.
persuasion?
A 6.
Oh.
It's all in intimidation and
Oh, that's right.
deception.
Yeah, he
I have
lies and he
plus
scares
12 in those.
So you're like
Use my DM dice.
you're like, hey, don't worry about it. And somebody's like, and you see them like turn and like start quickly going the other direction down the street.
What tells me that guy's gonna worry about it?
That guy
Everyone here
is
is
going
gonna
to worry
worry
about
about it. This is. God fucking.
Yeah.
Ah! And Rowan just starts walking as calmly but efficiently as possible. And you guys do catch that she is more like soldier walking than you've ever seen her. It's like as if stepping onto this ground, she like can't turn it off. And she will lead the way towards the path that she had originally described, where there are usually a couple members of the Radiant Dawn that are there to gather any donations for the Dawn from the public and from people of Lira. Just try to find somebody that isn't necessarily there to like cut heads off on site.
Baylor's falling right behind her. He's keeping an eye out in case, Brother of Artanis agent, dragon cultist, some other nut job who decides, I don't like these people's faces.
Mormons, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rowan, you make your way through the street. You guys kind of leave the commotion of your like arrival behind, and where that like one person kind of ran off to, you're not sure, but like it seems like a problem for later, for now at least. You find what you're looking for. You find a pair of members of the Dawn, at a posted up at like a, it's essentially like a little like recruiter's booth type of thing where they come and they, if people want to join, they can report there. If people come to give donations, they also it also serves as like a liaison sort of thing. Like they're not the official like city guard or anything of Lira, but they do a lot to like assist in the like affairs of the city. You do not recognize either of the two individuals at this booth. You can tell by like their uniforms and the insignias that they are not full vanguards. They are essentially initiates. I forget if I gave it a specific term during your flashback session.
I think you. I don't know. I think it was initiates, but
I have initiate. Yes, it is initiate here. So like they're like initiate level. They're members, but they are not they are not vanguards, and they are not necessarily paladins. As those are totally different things. But they appear. They're probably a couple of years younger than you, so you sort of assume that they are newer recruits who came to Lira and joined the Dawn in the years since you have been gone.
Rowan smiles like gently at them, not like too enthusiastically or anything, and just offers like a quick nod. You said it's morning, so
Yeah, it's like morning time.
good morning. Might I trouble one of you to aid us in a bit of a challenge we are facing this morning?
The one of the two of them, your man, he kind of smiles back at you and he says, "Of course, ma'am. And what is it that I can help you with?"
Can you, if it is within your time today, preferably quickly, tell either Vanguard Effie or Grand Marshal Andesius that Rowan Ambermore has returned to Lira and seeks an audience immediately?
He kind of like blinks at that and he says,
in regards to the war and the dragons and the impending death of everybody. And Grand Marshal received a message from me recently, and he will know what I am referring to.
You can see that it doesn't seem to like Rowan Ambermore doesn't seem like it registers to him. Like he doesn't know
I didn't think
you are.
it would.
He seems like highly confused. Make a persuasion roll.
Yep. I didn't think any of that would like ring a bell. I think it's just her being efficient of like, I'm giving you everything
Sure.
you need to know, so I don't have to repeat
I mean,
myself
like
later.
dragons and war and all that stuff like definitely means something to him.
25 persuasion.
He blinks. He seems very confused. He says, "You say that you have been in communication with the Grand Marshal of the Radiant Dawn."
He received a sending from me recently. I used to reside here.
He says, well, then, yes, I suppose that certainly I can send a message back to the Dawn Fort and let him know that you have arrived in the city. Is he expecting you?
I think my message probably told him this was inevitable, but I did not give him forewarning of my arrival today.
He looks at the person next to him and goes, "What do you think, Vivian? Should one of us go back to the fort and deliver this message? It seems important, does it not?" The other paladin, the young woman, kind of like looks a little more skeptical, and she says, "I think that we can manage to send word back without abandoning our post, Eric." And she moves over to like behind their little like setup, and she opens a cage and she takes out a like a pigeon essentially, and she like waves her hand in front of it, and you see like its eyes flare with illumination, and then like the runage around the plumage of its neck lights up, and she speaks to the messenger sparrow, the quick incantation that like activates the message, and she says, "A message for the Grand Marshal Andesius. There are travelers in the South Plaza, one of them naming herself as Rowan Ambermore, that have said that they have come for an audience with you, and ask that this message be delivered with all haste. And she ends the message, and like the bird flies off. And she says, that should reach the Grand Marshal within a few minutes, and
Thank
I
you.
suppose he will act accordingly.
Thank you. Yes, I did not want to walk in as I used to when I once lived here. I figured being polite was appropriate. And Rowan will just step aside and clear away for anyone who might else need to come up and talk to them.
Okay.
And wait for what comes. And she just looks at the guys and just kind of shrugs, says very quietly, yeah, not worth throwing my weight around yet, unfortunately. She kind of just shrugs and waits
Alright.
patiently.
Alar tosses a coin into. There's probably a collection bowl. He just hucks one without looking and sets down to wait. Notices few minor rips and tears in his coat and other stuff, so he's gonna practice some of the spells that he's learned.
Okay.
Wow, that really works. Holy crap!
Anything that anybody would like to? You have an amount of time before like somebody comes in response to this message. Anything any of you want to do while you're kind of just floating around in this area?
I think Rowan would probably just look around for any shopkeeps or any people that look familiar, like that she would have seen in her time here. Not to necessarily like rush to interact with them, but just being aware of who's still here.
Okay. Yeah, you certainly recognize some familiar faces. There's folks that have lived their whole lives here and will live their whole lives here. So you've not been gone that many years now. So there's not a ton has changed. Things things feel eerily similar.
She's trying to recenter herself into like this space of like, never thought I'd actually come back within a mile of this place, let alone be standing here.
Brom, make a perception check.
Fun.
That one.
Ooh. You.
Oh, see shit.
You are like absolutely like jump scared when somebody taps you on the shoulder.
No.
You do that, and the person who tapped you goes, "Oh!" God! And you turn, and there is a man who appears to be in his like mid-40s. He looks like he's got like an apron on. You think maybe he came from like the butcher, just on the other side of like the plaza. And he says, terribly sorry. I saw you from across the market, and you're not a famous bard, are you?
Who's asking?
He goes, he says, my name is Hollis, and there's this piece of music that I heard not that long ago, and a bard that was coming through town played it, and it's just an absolute jam, and it's called "What Is Love: Baby Don't Hurt Me," and well, all the stories say that it was written by a famous bard who was a half orc, and I saw you, and I see that you have your musical instrument there, and I know it's a long shot, but not a lot happens in Lira day to day. You wouldn't happen to be him, would you?
Is this a trick so you can serve me?
Serve you what? I mean, I work at the butcher. I can give you like sausages if you want.
Alar is gonna do a quick, sweep of the area with his eyes, just in case this is like.
Make a perception check.
That's a 26.
You don't see anything. And the guy goes, "If you're not him, it's fine. I just thought that maybe you were the famous bard Nigel Dewsbury, author of What Is Love: Baby Don't Hurt Me, and I thought if you were, maybe you would sign something for me."
It's Major Nigel Dewsbury, and yes, that is one of my stage names.
Alar's just gonna glance over at Rowan.
Real talk. What did Aylar just
Didn't
whisper?
come
to
through
Rowan?
the mic.
I'll explain later.
Oh.
Rowan asks no questions anymore of anything with this group.
I like
She-
to say that, like,
you all
like,
found her in a fighting pit.
Yeah.
There are no questions anymore. We're
And then
trying
she
to
grew a
save the
beard.
world. All of this can be
Yeah,
explained
she grew a
later.
beard.
I like to think that he was like, I'll explain later, and then she's like, I don't care.
Probably.
No, she nods, but she will never ask for an explanation later.
That's good. Because he'll forget unless prompted.
Yeah, okay, you want me to sign something?
He's like, yeah. And he's like,
Alar's just gonna pull out a scrap of
I was gonna
parchment
say,
and
I have paper.
an ink pen.
And he goes, oh, he's like, thanks. And he takes it. He pulled it out to you.
Brom will sign Major Nigel Dewsbury with a little cartoony drawing of Major Nigel Dewsbury.
Okay.
There you go. Don't let me see you selling that on the market later.
He says, no, I'm gonna keep it. He says, you wouldn't play a song, would you?
Fucking Grand Marshal's gonna come down to the South Plaza. And there's gonna be a rock concert going on, and he's just gonna lose faith and walk away.
He's like, I mean, I could.
So, I mean, you don't have
Alar
to.
just
but-
shrugs, like,
And he like, Brom like turns to everybody else and is like, I can't tell if this guy is a fan or an asshole.
he's a fan, Rom.
Do I know this man from like my time here?
You've probably
Been here
seen him
before.
about.
Rowan just kind of shrugs and goes, I mean, it's never a dick to me, so if he's being a dick to you, what'd you do to deserve it? But I don't think he's being a dick. I think he's being awkwardly sincere with the person who wrote one of his favorite, if not his favorite of all time songs.
He's like, we don't get a lot
but-
of music, new music out this
No.
way.
Yeah.
We get
Alar-
nothing out this way.
Yeah, Alar and Thescan will make clear to Rom that he doesn't see any other threats, so it's probably not an ambush. So, a couple of hand gestures.
Yeah, I got a new thing I've been working on. I could play if you want to hear it.
Because yeah, and he turns and he says, everybody. He says, this is a famous bard. We have a honest to God, like, good bard, and not Jethro and his lute that lost 2 of its strings a year ago and he hasn't replaced them. And there's like a guy over by a cafe with like a shit lute. He's like, no. And like a small kind of like crowd comes to gather, and Hollis is like, he's like, this is. Would you say it was Colonel?
No, it's Major. It's always
Major
been Major
Nigel.
Nigel Dewsbury.
Because he's
Yeah, Major
like,
Nigel
this is
Dewsbury.
Major Nigel Dewsbury. He wrote that song that we heard the other day. He's like a super famous bard. He said he's got a new song. He's gonna play it. Like everybody like, and some people like gather around. And you
Who
see
played
like
the
a
song the other day?
what's that?
Who played the song the other day?
Oh, he's like, he said it was someone who was traveling through the area. It's just some guy. I don't know. He played it in the pub.
What did he look like?
He's like, and you see him fail his history check, his intelligence check. He's like, a guy.
Just wondering who's copying off of our friend here.
Well, he did credit him.
Okay, as long as there's good credit,
It's a
just making
tribute.
sure.
It's a tribute band.
Yeah. So Brom takes out the band door and he tunes it up a little bit. He goes, "This is a new song I've been working on. Hope you'll like it. It's called Purple Precipitation. It's 18 and a half minutes long. Here we go." And he starts to play.
Make a performance check.
Alrighty. Bring up my. Jesus. 23.
Okay. So for 18 and a half minutes, you play that song on the guitar, on the band door. Purple Precipitation. When you finish, everybody mostly seems confused by the.
Yeah, it was mostly band door solo with not a lot of singing.
Mostly, but like they're not ready for rock and roll. Except there is one guy who is like shouting into a messenger sparrow in the corner. He's like, "I've got a new sound for you. Listen to this!" And he holds up a bird at your guitar solo for a few minutes, and then he throws it, and it flies off to the east. As you like finish the last licks, a bunch of people come forward and they throw like coin in your loot your Bandor case. You make like 6 gold total. In like loose change. You probably sign a couple more autographs. That sort of passes the time until there is sort of a commotion from the direction of the Dawn Fort, and a single the gate opens that like leads up to the Dawn Fort, and a single person comes out. Rowan, you do recognize this person. This is a senior vanguard with the order by the name of Josephine Silvermane. I don't know that you had like a ton of interaction with her, but like you know who she is, and she knows you. She comes into the square and kind of like looks around. She like looks at the like dispersing crowd from Brahm's performance, and like spots you guys, and then walks over to you.
Vanguard Silvermane.
She nods her head. She says, "Miss Ambermore."
Rowan flinches a little because she's not Vanguard Ambermore anymore.
I forgot his title. Hang on.
Grand Marshal.
That's it. She says the Grand Marshal sent me to retrieve you.
If it's not too much of a burden, my traveling companions need to come with me. They have as much important information as I do, and while they've survived this fight this long, I think he would be interested to know more about them and who's on our side.
If it is of any comfort, we are members of the Ordinal Libri.
She nods. She says, "Interesting." She looks back to you and she says, "That should be no problem. I was instructed that you are to be offered every hospitality as a guest."
Rowan had this look on her face of instructed to be disarmed was coming, and she was starting to internally start to freak out and like be like, and then when every hospitality, and she like, huh?
Make an insight check.
Okay. It's only a 13. It's not great.
With a 13, Josephine is being, the picture of like civility and professionalism. Mm-hmm. Though you can tell that like she also seems a little perplexed that like
She was definitely there
she
when
was
I got
instructed
kicked
to like bring her and her friends up here like
It's fine.
instead of like take their weapons and put her in
And
handcuffs.
irons. Yeah.
But she says, unless you have any reason that we must delay, I would have you follow me now, and we'll return to the Dawn Fort.
I just kind of like at the guys, like, let's go, and then start following her immediately.
Taylor falls into step.
All right. She leads you up to the Dawn Fort. It looks very much as you remember it. Very little has changed. You pass the barracks. You pass the armory. You pass the training grounds. You see the high climbing wall. Probably the wood has been replaced, so it's not the same wall necessarily, but it's in the same place. You know, and you find that sort of all of these little snippets of memory and things are flooding back to you as you pass through here. They bring you. She brings you to the main hall, the great hall of the keep. You pass through two paladins on guard who stand at attention as she passes and leads you through. You can see out the massive like windowed back wall of the main hall out to the no man's land beyond, with all of its with all of its markers. You do see something different out there as you like are passing through this chamber. Make a history check, I guess.
That will be a dirty 20 for history.
Okay. The other thing that you brought back from like deep within the blighted lands,
The glowing, yeah.
the glowy crystal that like had that like weird resonance that repelled shades. You see like a similar, like the light like jogs your memory of that device. They have constructed like a network of these things. They seem to have found a way to like manufacture them or recreate them, and they've essentially built, it looks like a network, a web work of these things filling the no man's land, charged by some sort of an energy source, which would, you assume, be like a repelling barrier to keep things from coming out.
Without really like meaning to, Rowan would just kind of like walk past Silvermane and like get very close to like the windowed wall and just be like literally dumbstruck at seeing it because of what that would mean. And she looks very like just kind of shell-shocked at the memories of that item and everything that happened that the last time she was here and that item was involved and everything. And like you can see like the memories coming back and hitting her, but then just the realization that like it was worth it. And it's just her face is very like
the rest of you, like, you see, like, Rowan peels off from your group and, like, walks over and is just, like, standing in front of this window. Josephine Silvermane stops. She doesn't say anything. She just, like, stops and turns and is, like, waiting while Rowan is, like, looking out the window. And after, like, 30 or so seconds go by, she, like, looks to you guys, kind of as if to say, like, do you want to go get her? Like,
Alar will hold a hand up. He'll walk up next to Rowan. Too many memories, or Particularly good one or bad one, or
Mixed bag. And she'll point to the light out there. The tech that we got recently, that wasn't the only item I got on my last run out there. They've duplicated it. It's keeping them safer. She kind of like shakes out of it and goes to fall back in line with the others. And kind of looks like bashful almost at Silvermane, like knowing she fully like zonked. But like doesn't say anything to her, doesn't apologize, just kind of like...
Okay. Yeah, and she doesn't comment on it either. As you come back, she kind of like, once you all like kind of step back up, she like pauses a second, like gives a nod, and turns around and continues walking. You pass members of the Dawn going about their business as you take this journey. Some of them you don't recognize, some of them you do. There is mixed reaction to your presence, Rowan. You certainly see a number of like stony, accusatory faces. You see people who are kind of too like shocked at seeing you to have much of it. Like they kind of like they blue screen for a second as they see you. You see a few people who look at you with kind of an odd mixture of like questioning and what you think maybe is like sympathy. You kind of get the sense that like there are definitely those among the Order who perhaps did not like support or agree with the decision to exile you. Eventually you arrive in front of a familiar door, the door to the Grand Marshal's office. You remember the last time that you were in that office was when the Grand Marshal gave you your set of orders for what would be your final mission as a member of the Dawn into the Blighted Peninsula. And Vanguard Silvermane walks up to the door, gives it a quick 3 knocks, rap, 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 and after a moment, opens the door, kind of like half steps in, and says, Grand Marshal Rowan Ambermore and her traveling companions. And you don't hear anything, but you assume he must have like gestured, because she nods and steps back, and she like gestures you into the room.
Rowan will nod at Silvermane as like a thanks, and then walks in and, without meaning to, stands as she last stood there, as if waiting for orders for a mission, and waits for her friends to file in beside her.
Okay.
And so we do.
Grand Marshal Martellus Andesius looks very much the same that he did, a few years ago. Maybe a little grayer around the temples, a little more salt and pepper in the whiskers. He like stands up as you guys enter. When Osrius at the back of the group like ducks his way into the room and stands back up, he turns, kind of like leans past you, and he says, "That will be all, Vanguard Silvermane. Thank you. You are dismissed." And she kind of pauses a second, and she says, "Sir?" And he says, "It's all right. dismissed. And she kind of nods and retreats from the room, closes the door. He looks at you and he says, "Welcome back to the Dawnford, Rowan Ambermore."
Thank you for allowing me and my companions entry, Grand Marshal Odysseus.
He kind of shakes his head. He says, "Why don't you tell me what has brought you back here?"
Rowan would briefly introduce all of her friends, and then would very quickly overview the more important details of what she knows that he needs to know, and that the fact that they need to go into the Blighted Peninsula to find something. And probably sensing some of his, like, the hell is going on with all of this info dump. She will meet his eyes and say, "I've learned more about the light since I've left, and how it is that I can call it. And I know the name and the origin of it, sir."
He smiles a little bit, and you actually, like, as you sort of like read him, make an insight check.
Not bad for Rowan. That is a 16.
Okay. You really don't get the sense from him that he is all that, like, confused or blown away by, like, your story. You don't really, like, he doesn't really seem particularly surprised that, like, you're here. In fact, with 16, I think, in fact, he has, like, not a smile. He's categorically, like, stoic as always, but he has sort of like a knowing glint in his eye.
You expected me, though, didn't you? Long before I sent that sending.
He says, "I did not know when it would be, but I expected you to return from the very day that I sent you from here."
Was sending me away part of the path I needed to take?
He kind of like strokes his chin and he says, "I think I should show you something. I think it may be what you needed to come back here for. And while we walk, let us talk."
She nods.
And he looks at the others of you and he says, "You are equally involved in all of these goings-on, yes?"
Most definitely.
He says,
They're my new family.
"Then I invite you to follow along as well."
Thank you, Grand Marshal.
Before we leave the room, at the word family, Rowan does grab the necklace, the little
Okay.
pendant, and quickly checks on
Yep, everybody's alive.
Captain. Okay. Okay, everyone's still alive. Okay, good.
God, what would you do had I thrown that at you right now? Like, they're all dead!
Rowan would have just taken Chakai to her own throat and game over for Rowan. There would have been no coming back. Just to totally guilt trip Andesius into fixing the world
Yeah.
for her. Just, nah, you did this.
He says, we are bound for the Temple of Helm. We need to meet with High Cleric Delora.
Grand Marshal, when we get there, I wonder if it's not too much of an imposition. And she kind of motions to Walter. My friend here needs quite a bit of aid. From somebody...
Walter dismisses the minor illusion to show his creepy
No
eyes.
tact!
And Dallas, it doesn't even phase him in the slightest.
Rowan
He's just
expected no phasing from him. Just...
So the eyes come out and Decius is like, huh. And then turns and keeps walking. He's like,
we. You something about the face too.
He says, we shall see what we can do about that.
When Brahm says do something about the face, Rowan looks at Brahm and goes, at least he has a wife, Brahm. And she will keep walking after.
Yeah, and where is she?
Happy after seeing her husband.
Away from Walter.
No, she got visited by him last night. I'm pretty sure she's pretty well set. Walter's very pro,
Walter's and you can see him considering shovel teleporting out of this conversation.
Everything Rowan's doing right now is to make everyone uncomfortable because she is freaking out right now about this entire conversation with Andesius.
Alar's he's just patiently waiting. Scooter's flopped on his collar.
It probably hits Alar that Rowan has been with them far too long at this point.
He at this point he's not sure if it's because she's been around the fools, whether this is her with the pirates.
It's all of it.
She's finally comfortable enough to be like, no, this is who I am truly. World's gonna end. Don't give a crap.
So
we'll walk along after we settle down.
Grand Marshal and Decius takes you down the hallway from his office and leads you kind of back the path that you came, back out the main entrance of the temple, of the fortress, to around the side where it is an adjoining building, but it has a separate entrance, the temple to Helm. As you guys walk, he says, twice in my life, I have had dreams that I believe were visions sent to me by the light, meant to use me as an agent of its design. The first was when I was a boy, 16 or 17. I had a dream one night of a girl about my age who lived in a house not far from us. She was stranded by the river, and a dark figure picked her up and swept her away. I woke with such conviction that what I had dreamed was real, that I rushed from my bed in the middle of the night and ran straight to the shoreline where I had dreamed I saw her taken. When I arrived, I found her clinging to a partially submerged rock a few hundred feet from the shore. In my heart, I knew that if I took the time to find the others, her strength would fail and she would be gone before I could return with help. So I jumped in straight away and I swam to her. The current was strong, but I was a good swimmer. I managed to get to where she was. She was chilled to the bone and showed me her leg, which was badly broken, dashed on a rock beneath the surface when she had been swept along by the current. With her injured leg, I would not be able to swim, with both of us back to the shore. I thought that I had killed us both by rushing into action without thinking first. I closed my eyes and I prayed to whatever god or spirit had sent me the dream to guide me, and to give me the strength to save us both. I remember the girl asking me if we were going to die as I clung to that rock. I opened my eyes and I told her that no, all would be well. And I knew that it would be. I felt a warmth spread from within me down into my fingertips, and I placed my hand on her broken leg. Something passed between us, and I remember the flash of light and her sharp cry as the bone reset and made itself whole. Together we swam to safety, and the next day I told my parents what had transpired, and set out to find a Dawn recruiter that afternoon. I knew that my dream and the power that I had been granted were a sign that my destiny was to follow that call, wherever it would take me. Did you know that I, too, have the spirit of the stalwart protector, Rowan Ambermore?
No, sir. You never told anyone that in our group.
You guys exit the Dawn Fort and begin walking across the courtyard towards the temple. And he says, "The second time I had such a dream was the night that Malarkar betrayed his oaths and fled from Lira. In that dream, I saw birds in a cage. One bird amongst them turned black of feather and grew large talons, which it used to slay many of its cage mates, before escaping from the cage. The remaining birds mourned the dead in the evil act committed by their fellow, but one amongst them with a red crest mourned more deeply than the rest. In my dream, this bird began to waste away despite the efforts of the others to bring it food and to tend to it. Eventually, its feathers too began to turn black, just as had the first. But one bird came and opened the door to the cage and cast the sick bird out. It fell down into the darkness and was gone. But then it returned, rising up again, its feathers golden like the sun, and a halo round its red-crested head. It came back to the cage, and the bars disappeared, and all of the birds flew into the sky free." He stops in front of the doors to the temple, and before he goes to open them, he turns back around and he says, "I wanted you to know that for a reason, Rowan Ambermore. Not to earn forgiveness if fury burns in your heart towards me for my choice to exile you. If that is the case, I shoulder that weight unflinchingly. I learned long ago that too often what is right, what one wants, and what must be done, all three are different paths. I believe that my dream was a vision from the light, telling me what I must do. And I believe that now you have returned, as my dream predicted you would. And so I think you have a right to understand the truth of why you were sent away in the first place."
I did not hate you, but I wondered why I had been unable after years to prove myself as trustworthy, and why, despite being willing to submit to questions, to spells of truth, to everything, my word wasn't enough. I could understand to a point why. Malark was my only friend, my truest friend. So despite whatever truth I could tell you, of course there's some concern that he could reach me again some other way. But I didn't take his hand that day, and that's what upset me. I lost my group and my best friend that day. It's only by the grace of the light that Effany didn't die. So I was angry. Until I got captured and sold into slavery and landed myself on a pirate ship. It's a story for another time. So I'm not angry anymore. I just hope that your vision was right. Because this feels like a hell of a lot to put on a dream. Respectfully.
He nods and he says, "You are, as ever, filled with grace. You would be more than justified to rail against me for the rest of both of our days. I do not defend that the actions I took were anything but horrid. But I have not questioned for one moment since I first called the light. When I feel that I am being pushed in a direction, I trust that in the end it will all be for something greater than all of this." And I think we shall know very shortly if that is the case or not. Come. And he turns and pushes through the door to the temple. As he enters in, he turns to the other 4 of you, and he says, "Masters Brom, Walter, Alar, and Ozarius, understand that what you are about to be witness to is something that all but the most upper echelons of the Order of the Radiant Dawn are privy to. For outsiders to see what you are about to see is... many of my predecessors would call it blasphemy. He kind of like... he looks like maybe he's going to say more, and then he just sort of shakes his head and turns and walks further into the temple. A half-elven woman with like silver hair tied back in a long braid down the back of her, like down her back, approaches you, the High Cleric Delora, and she kind of like looks at the group of you quizzically. She looks at you, Rowan, and she sort of quirks an eyebrow at General, at Grand Marshal Andesius, and she says, "You intend to show all of them?" And he says,
Wouldn't it help if I said the name Zalzaveth?
they like kind of look at you and they don't seem to have any reaction to that.
Yeah, that might help.
Rowan pats him on the shoulder. Good try.
The Grand Marshal says, "Yes, I am certain." She says, "By your command, Grand Marshal." And she like reaches into her robes and she pulls out like a very, very old looking heavy duty iron key. And Decius brings out a matching one. And the two of them walk over to the like hefty stone altar of Helm. And on like some of the carvings on the like the marble legs of the altar, they both on opposite sides like twist a piece of the marble and like slide it away to reveal a hidden keyhole, which they insert their 2 keys into and turn them, and then pull them back out. and then and Decius like looks and he like gestures to Osrius and he goes, "Come here a moment, would you?" And Osrius kind of like stumps over and he says, "If you would stand on that side and relieve the High Cleric, I should not wish to force her to dirty her robes or strain herself at this." And Osrius like, "Okay," puts his hands on the corner, and the Grand Marshal goes to the other corner, and he says, "On 3, push, please." And so, 1, 2, 3, he and Oz push, and the massive stone altar shifts back, and they both like take several steps forward, pushing, and they push, and it reveals a circular staircase descending down beneath the temple. Decius grabs a candle, like a candelabra, off of the altar, and like he kind of like looks at it. He puts it back, just takes one candle off of it, and then just casts light on just the candle, and he gestures towards you, and he says, "Come. What you must see is below."
Down we go.
I go down. I nod at. Is the cleric going with us, or is she staying up?
She'll like bring up the rear.
I nod as I pass her, in that awkward way of like, haven't been here in many Sundays, thank you. Goes down.
Okay. You descend a pretty significant way down this stone staircase. You realize like you must be pretty deep beneath the city when eventually you step off onto flat ground. The Grand Marshal leads you down a short corridor. The floors are a polished marble, though you can see that like a pretty decent layer of like dust covers them. The walls are unadorned and smooth cut stone. The Grand Marshal says, "Once every few years, myself or the High Cleric, or any Grand Marshal or High Cleric of the Radiant Dawn are tasked with the maintenance and upkeep of this chamber. It has existed since the very founding of the Dawn Fort, during the fall of the Empire. He pushes open 2 heavy doors and leads you into another chamber. This one is sort of like a plain circular shape, though it has these kind of alcoves all around it. And you see in the alcoves, you see there's these sort of like tile mosaic images depicting a number of people whom most of whom you don't recognize. One of them is clearly identifiable from like other depictions you've seen as Theodorian Mythlanday. But there's a handful of others that are people. They are all wearing like golden and platinum armor and stuff like that. They're clearly supposed to be like a bunch of paladins. But that's not the most prominent feature of the room. The most prominent thing is what is in the center of the room. And what is in the center of the room is a 9-foot tall, 6-foot diameter crystal. It is faintly golden, like a very pale, almost like a pale amber, and it is glowing a little bit, casting everything in sort of this honey-colored light in this chamber. The chamber is, the crystal is translucent, and inside it, you can see the woman from your vision, Corey. Her eyes are closed, scar runs across her cheek, her short-cut red hair floating around her like a fiery halo. She wears a simple white dress. She is immobile inside the crystal, almost looking like she's like frozen in place, like floating in water. As you enter the chamber, the Grand Marshal like kind of takes a knee in front of this, and he turns to you and he says, "This is the Star of Dawn. It is the source of the light, the source of all Paladin's power."
Oh no, that you should be here.
Grand Marshal,
He looks at you.
do you know who she is in relation to me?
He says, "I do not."
God, we should have brought that tech with us.
Rowan?
When we all... She shakes her head for a minute. And looks at Grand Marshal and at the cleric, the High Cleric. Before we were here, we found some technology that allowed us to see visions of the past, which is how I knew this woman to be the source of the light. But what my friends didn't see is that she had a child with Theodore and Mithlinde. And that child had a child, and a child, and a child, till my mother. And then me. You can put me under Stone of Truth, or any spell you want.
Hey, Brom, does this mean that we have to bow at Rowan or something?
If you do, I will take your knees out, and you won't be able to stand at all.
Okay. Hold off on the bowing.
I say this not for honor or anything, other than to say that's why I can call the light. She's why I can call the light. And I'll look at the Grand Marshal.
He
And I'm like
very,
shaking.
very matter of factly. He just sort of he says, "I have practiced my entire life at casting aside my own whims to follow that of..." He nods towards the crystal. He says, "The details of your heritage, all of this are news to me, but the fact that your journey has led you where it has to bring you back here to this seems to me to have been plain as day all along. It was inevitable. There is a reason that you're in this chamber now. What that was, what that will be, I think remains to be seen."
Full and respectful honesty to you, Grand Marshal. The technology that allowed us to view the past was the technology that Malark took that night. We recovered it. It is with the Ordinum. It will stay with the Ordinum. It is safe there.
He just sort of smiles a little and he says, "Retrieved perhaps too early for you to see what it had to show you. Recovered to show you what you needed to see at just the right time to bring you here." He kind of grins and he says, "Sounds an awful lot like the will of the light to me."
Rowan just moves to, like, position herself where the face of Corey is. Like, not getting too close to it, like, still staying as far back as Indesius is, and then just kind of clunks and sits down.
You,
and just looks up at
you sort of
her.
sit, and, like, as you sit and you, like, begin to look up, you, like, out of, like, the top of your periphery, you swear that you, like, saw the figure in the crystal, like, looking at you, but when you look up, like, she is still as ever. But something in, like, the pit of your stomach is sort of like, you feel it like a tether. It is, like, pulling you, urging you, like, you feel compelled to, like, walk up and reach out and, like, and touch this crystal.
Rowan's gonna take a minute and breathe through that. She's not gonna ignore it, but she needs to just settle after having literally told Indesius, "Hey, you kicked me out. I got kidnapped. I found the guy who ruined my life. I found the tech that ruined my life. And now this is my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother in front of me, frozen in what looks like amber, and my last name's Ambermore, so who the hell is coming up with these stupid-ass names right now?" And she's just processing for a moment, just letting everyone kind of do what they will for a moment before she will stand. But she's letting everyone have a minute to talk, question, whatever, before I'll do anything else.
Yeah, Alar will take that opportunity. Grand Marshal, I don't suppose you've seen hide or scale of another member of your order, Nuala Trueheart?
He says, "No. She was granted a leave of absence, a favor to a member of the Ordinum. I have not seen or heard from her since she left several years ago."
I was afraid you'd say that, but I had to ask. Thank you.
Turns out I'm not the first. Well, Nuala was still a paladin when they met her. I'm the first ex-paladin that they met. Grand Marshal.
I don't know, you seem plenty paladin to me.
The Grand Marshal goes like, "Got a point."
Considering I had no title and I was called Miss Ambermore upon my arrival back to this city, and the knife that stuck into me. Anyway, that's the little bit of petty Rowan will allow to sneak out, and she will stand up and kind of like, oh god. She's like looking at this big crystal floating her ancestor, and is clearly just like, I need an adult, and adults here are adults. But we'll take a few breaths and looking at her friends. Anything else before I do something potentially catastrophe causing? Guys?
Muted.
I said, don't look at us, Your Highness.
God damn it. Knew I should have told Indesius in private.
Alar's gonna stick out a fist for Brahm.
I look at Oz. This is why you're my favorite. And I will
She
just...
doesn't say shit.
You say that, and he goes, "You're wasting time. Touch the rock."
Yeah, I know, I'm scared. And Rowan will go over and walk, straight on, head on, and just look at Corey through the crystal. So you're the one that Nuala went looking for. And you're the one that somehow led me here. Well, let's see what happens next. And very specifically, Rowan will put her hand out wherever Corey's matching hand is kind of floating.
Okay.
And touch my hand against the crystal there.
As you do, all of you are like blinded by a light that fills the chamber. Rowan, you press your hand to the crystal, expecting to feel, you're not sure what, but certainly a solid surface. But what you feel is that you feel your hand like press into the surface of the crystal as if sort of like dipping into like a crystal clear, like ice cold pool of water. And a moment later, you feel like your fingertips like touch the fingertips of the woman inside the crystal, and a jolt like shoots up your arm. And as everybody like clears their vision, and you guys all like kind of like blink this like the sunspots out of your eyes, you see that the crystal inside the chamber is gone. And Rowan, like, you are standing there and like kind of hand in hand, you are holding like a hand with a very uncrystallified Corey, who like opens her eyes and looks around at the chamber and looks at you and breaks into this like huge grin.
Rowan tries to talk and just doesn't make any sound, like not even like stutter, just like no sound comes out.
She goes, "Hi, Rowan. Did I get what kind of voice did she have? Did she have an accent? Was she British, or she had an American accent?"
I think she had an American accent.
She was American too.
I don't know. I was too busy screaming about putting the plot together to
I'm making
remember
the executive decision. She's an American accent. She goes, "Hi, Rowan."
Hi. Oh God.
You hear like a clank, and you like turn around, and like General Decius is like, he's like down like this, like down like on one knee, and
what's the cleric doing?
she's like this, and Corey goes, okay, that's weird. Stand up, don't do that. And the two of them, like, they kind of like rise, and she says, "Grand Marshal, High Cleric, nice to meet you. If it's all the same, we don't need to bow. That's fine." And the Grand Marshal was like, "I'm going to be honest. This one's shaking me a little bit." And she goes, "Yeah, it's a lot.
Did no one ever touch the crystal before? Did anyone else touch the crystal before, Grand Marshal? Cleric?" Rowan's in full panic.
They're like, yes. I mean, people touch it to ask for guidance, and she's like, "Yeah, they weren't you, Rowan."
Oh boy.
She goes,
Hi.
she
Oh
goes,
God.
Mailer's gonna hand her a water skin, like, take a drink. It's water, I swear.
When you like take a drink, like Corey like reaches out and takes it from you, and like she takes a drink. She's like, "It's been 1,500 years. I'm pretty parched."
Yeah.
She goes. She turns to the rest of you. She goes, "Brom, Walter, Alar, Osrius, right?" She nods. She says, "I'm a little fuzzy on some of the details. It was a weird condition being a crystal. It was hard to watch everything. we, and she like looks to the general, the Grand Marshal says, could maybe use somewhere with more chairs. They're gonna have some questions for me, and I'd rather sit. And the Grand Marshal's like, yes, of course. Corey's like, cool. And the Grand Marshal and the High Cleric, like, dumbstruck, will begin to lead you guys out of this chamber. Corey, like, kind of goes to follow along with them, and if anybody hesitates, she turns back. She's like, well, come on.
Rowan's following, but it's very still clearly like, oh god, and follows.
He's Alar's falling behind.
So she follows the Grand Marshal. They bring you to a chamber within the Dawn Fort where there's like enough places for all of you guys to sit down around like a wooden sort of big like conference table essentially. She will like take a position at the table. She asks that the Grand Marshal and the High Cleric like leave you guys to have a conversation in private. And she says, she's like, after I've spoken to them, I will take the opportunity that we can speak as well. And they take that pretty well in stride. The Grand Marshal, seems like he kind of thought you were the chosen one to begin with. So he's like, yeah, totally, dog. He just leaves. Once you guys are alone in the room, she like takes her seat at the table, and she just sort of like with a like very patient look on her face, just like sits and waits for whoever's gonna send the opening volley her way. Like either Rowan recovers enough to start talking, or one of the others like engages with her. She's just very patiently waiting.
You got something?
Rowan has 10 million questions and nowhere to begin.
Okay.
Right now.
Then if Rowan's still frozen, Alar's gonna look a bit stricken and say, "I'm sorry, we couldn't save Elizabeth."
Her face does fall at that a little, and she says, I know. It's not your fault. She just kind of shakes her head and she says, I felt it when he went. We all did. If it's any consolation to you, Alar, I think he was ready. He wasn't sad when he went.
Rowan looks to see if anyone else will jump in first. But now that like someone else has spoken, she's a little bit more like, right, we've got work to do. Brom, anything?
I don't know. Brahma's a little weirded out by talking to a god and asking it questions. No, I don't think he's going to say anything. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that Brahm, if he would ask, doesn't want to hear the answer to.
Rowan will lean into the table a little bit. Are you really my ancestor? Or was that
She says,
magic?
"Oh no, for sure I am."
Interesting. Okay. Um, could everyone in our line call the light?
I don't think so. Not all of them had cause to. Certainly a number of them could. Your great, however many times, grandfather couldn't. But I suspect that every one of my descendants certainly had the potential.
Okay. This may be impolite, but given the mix of people that we've seen in the memories, and I have no better way but to ask this and to say, what are you? What? And she respectfully looks at Alar and frowns a little bit. What was Zalzaveth? And I don't mean a dragon.
The term we were given was Exarch. She says, maybe I should tell you some things. And that will help you
Narrow in on what we need to find out more
put
of.
everything together. Me, Zalzaveth, the others, we're from the civilization that existed before the Invarian Empire rose. The one that was destroyed in the Cataclysm when the original Artanis unseated the World Heart. That's where all of us are from. In my time, powerful theocracies ruled the lands. Things before the World Heart was unseated were different. You have to understand. Gods, devils, beings from places outside of our world, planes of existence beyond the one that you know, these were all very much real and present things in the world. Not the legends and fairy stories that they've become today. As such, holy wars were pretty common among the most powerful civilizations in my day. The original Artanis rose to power because he brought a message of a world free from the oppression of theocratic law. He told people that they could be free of gods in whose name men slaughtered one another. His message was very popular. Things were not easy for a lot of people in our day. His following started pretty small, but by the end, he toppled entire governments and amassed an army with which to make his play for the World Heart. A lot of this, I think you already know bits and pieces of. But his belief that he could make utopia with the power of the World Heart was based on a lie. His dogma, his power, all of that came from a lie that he was told. Artanis was to play the fool and destroy the planet and all life on it by unseating the World Heart.
Who told him the lie?
His benefactor was a being known as Tharizdun. Tharizdun is an interloper god, long forgotten even in our age. A being whose evil transcends all other, who desires nothing short of the obliteration of all that is. A being so evil that the other celestial beings, both gods and primordials, saw fit to lock it away in a prison in the furthest reaches of something called the Far Realms. She gestures to you, not you, he's not here. She gestures to Walter. She turns to Walter and she says, "You've seen a sliver of the true nature of the message that Tharizdun gave to Artanis, Walter. A copy of a copy of a copy, still hidden behind the facade of the lie of utopia, and even still, the truth of it is nothing more than an incoherent primordial shrieking capable of rending the mind, body, and spirit. Just having witnessed it is killing you. And Maka is the only thing holding you together right now." And she says, I should say, we'll talk a little more, but I do think we can fix you." And Walter's like, "Oh, thank God." She says, "How Tharizdun managed to deliver this lie to the first Artanis, we don't know. How he survived it is even greater a mystery. What we do know is that as Artanis drew close to achieving his goal, the gods were finally forced to intercede in an attempt to mount a counter-offensive of their own. 6 deities chose mortal champions and breathed into them a flame of divine power." She gestures to herself. "We became known as Exarchs. We were shown the truth of what Artanis would unleash upon the world if not stopped, and given the power to challenge him. She kind of like looks at you. She's like, "Are you following? Does that make sense so far?"
That's what he passed on to me.
She looks at you and she nods. She says, "Yeah. When we faced off against the first Artanis, we mounted an army of our own. We made a deal with the metallic dragons for their aid, and we pitted ourselves against him. Ultimately, we didn't quite lose, but we certainly didn't win either. Artanis managed to unseat the World Heart. One of Maka's sisters was killed, and in order to stop the destruction of the planet, the metallic dragons were forced to sacrifice themselves by unleashing their power and that of the orbs of dragonkind in their possession to time lock the chamber of the World Heart. Maka is still trapped there in the chamber, maintaining the time lock. Since that time," she says, "Artanis, we managed to cast him into the Far Realm with his patron. But all of our contact with that place scarred us. It left us unable to harness our full power. We couldn't fix what had been done. That began the last 10,000 years. a race between us and the remnants of the Brotherhood of Artanis. The Brotherhood trying to finish what Artanis had started, us trying to find the means to stop it. And part of what we needed to do that was find successors. People that we could pass our power to become mortal again and make them exarchs in our stead, that they could go and fix the world. She looks at you, Alar, and she says, "You're it, bud. Zalzaveth picked you."
I'm nobody. I'm a locksmith's son.
She says, "You're an exarch with a piece of the power of Ogma, the god of knowledge."
Low curse and draconic.
Rowan just like grabs his shoulder and like kind of like gently shakes it, like, oh boy. I don't think I like where this conversation's going.
She kind of smiles a little bit at you, and she goes, "Yeah."
Nope.
She says, "Look, I had other contingency plans in case my bloodline died out, or I don't know, maybe you would have turned out to be a real potato, but you didn't. You are brave, and you are powerful, and you don't want any of this, which is the exact reason that you need to be the one."
And how do I pass it on after this, if we live, if this works?
She
I'm
says,
not-
if you succeed in fixing what was done, reseeding the world heart, you will connect our planet back into its place in the astral sea. She says, right now we're Agiria. This whole world is stranded in, you could call it a demi-plane. Nothing in, nothing out. If you can put things right, the whole of reality opens back up to us. We won't be alone anymore. The gods can reach here again. And then you can choose to keep that power or give it back. Go back to being mortal, live out the rest of your days.
Besides you and Zalzaveth and Torian Adrian. Who are the others?
She says, I was granted my powers from Helm, which should not be a huge shocker. She like gestures to like, there's probably like a big one of those like people have like a picture of Jesus over their like religious mother's like kitchen door. There's like a big helm like, she's like, not surprising. She says Zalzaveth was the Exarch of Ogma. Maka and her two sisters were the triumvirate Exarch of the god Kelemvor, god of death. Sylvanus, the god of nature, imbued his power to Mogroith. She looks at Oz, and she goes, "He's a crazy old blind man." And Oz is like, She says, "Torian, of course, was always sort of our leader. Istis, the god of fate, is his patron. Is his patron. He is the exarch of fate, and all of this has been his game, his machinations, trying to make sure that in the end the good guys win and the bad guys don't." She says, I think he's taking Zalzaveth a little hard. We had always thought that after all of these thousands of years, we'd maybe be able to set things right and live out the rest of our mortal lives in peace. Torian will come around. And she turns to you, Brahm, and she says, "Reynard and Isengrim, they're a little complicated. They're two halves of the same coin. Lira, the god of illusions, is their patron deity. They are the exarchs of illusion and trickery.
That tracks.
She laughs. She says, "They used to be way worse." She says,
That also tracks.
If you would believe it, they could not stand each other in the beginning. Reynard was...
I believe it.
She says, well, I mean, you know them both. She says, Reynard is who he is, and Isengrim is too literal for his own good, so Reynard was constantly pranking him. But I guess they've mellowed over the centuries.
Did they always make terrible coffee?
Yes.
She goes, yeah. Simultaneously, she goes, yes.
If not to change the tone from talking about bad coffee and making fun of people who've helped my friends. If you pass this to me, what happens to you?
I become mortal.
What happens to the paladins of the dawn? To their light?
She says, it's a little hard to explain. You'll kind of get it innately. She says, but the light isn't... It isn't a finite resource. It's not like I'm spreading out my power across all of them. It's more like a candle that burns and lets you light other candles off of it.
Okay. So anyone who's already been able to call the light can still do that, and anyone who was meant to call the light will still be able to. It's not going to mess with anything here with protecting Lira.
Nods. She says, yes, you're not going to break all the paladins.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to break all the paladins.
We could do that after we survive.
Just
come
come
here.
up with another song after we win.
Please don't break the paladins. They've been defending the realm from shadow monsters for 1,500 years.
And they all made fun of me on my very first day.
Yeah, which is
I
why I
have
wanted to
some
break
pick.
them.
Just mock him a little bit.
You all thought I sucked. I saved the world. Nanny nanny poo poo. You know, the usual. Oh wait, but I did it with a traitor. Never mind. Oh god, everything's complicated. Existential crisis returns to Rowan space for a
She,
moment.
you say that she like
title of the campaign.
she
Everything
reaches
is
out.
complicated.
Yeah, she reaches out and she puts a hand like on your shoulder and she goes, "You did it with a traitor. Do you want to talk about that? Romance is complicated. I'm your."
Oh god.
You said you did it with the traitor. I'm just listen. You can tell. You
survived
can tell great
training.
Grammy anything, and this is a judgment-free zone.
I should put you back in that goddamn crystal.
Ooh, don't do that.
Here's the thing. That man had eyes for power and power alone. You could ask any single female paladin in this entire fort that ever walked past him. And every male, too, that had the inkling. Just didn't matter. I mean, I survived training with him. I was his right hand. And up until the day he decided to slash me open and try to kill me. Or turn me into a member of Artanis' army. We were a pair.
I don't want to be. I'm not going to be preachy. You are under no obligation to take any advice from me. You're your own independent woman, and you make your own choices. But if I might give you a little bit of anecdotal experience from my life. I have seen firsthand how alluring Artanis' message can be. People don't follow him because they are full of darkness and evil. They follow him because they are disenfranchised and they want a better world, and they think that he can give it to him. That doesn't make them right. It doesn't make what they do in his name forgivable or good. But maybe it means that it might still be worth trying to save them. She shrugs. She goes, or not. Maybe kill him dead. Live your life.
I haven't ruled it all out. Either way. The straight killing or the saving. It's whether he'll let me try before he tries to kill me again. But we'll see. Oh, this is a weird day. Okay, can anyone else? Tired. My grandmother just accused me of having a sex life. I need to take a minute.
What can you tell us about Silarax? That final battle you had.
She says, the dragon was killed by Nossum Silverleaf's dragon hunters. We spent a long time trying to find and get information from chromatic dragons. With the metallics gone and their orbs of dragonkind employed to maintain the time lock around the world heart, we needed to get the chromatics to give us an orb in order to get back in and undo what had been done when we found suitable legacies, progenitors. What's the progenitor's the wrong word. What's the other one? What's opposite of progenitor? Successors. There you go. Sorry, I've been in a crystal for a long time. I'm a little.
It's all right. I'm not sure how I knew that.
She says, so we spent a lot of time trying to find chromatics. They are, as a rule, sort of assholes, and they have a cult that has helped them to hide themselves deep, deep, deep in dark places, making them very difficult to find.
Yeah, we've encountered some of their number.
She nods. She says, their primary objective, at least in our day, was to ensure that neither we nor the Brotherhood ever got our hands on another orb of dragon kind, lest we use it the same way that the Metallic's orbs were used, and wipe out the rest of the dragons. Ironically, the Invarian Empire mostly did that on their own. Nassim Silverleaf had a real hate boner for dragons. I don't know why. When they found Silarax, they quite accidentally stumbled upon the black orb of dragonkind. It had been in his possession. It was brought back to High Invaria and intended to be used as a power source to fuel their cities. A replacement for spectral energy. Of course, Nassim Silverleaf's chief advisor was, we learned, the Artanis of that day, and was really trying to use that orb to fire off a star spire to get back to the Fortress of Glower. I don't know how they did it, but those dragon cultists brought the black dragon back to life. Sort of. He was pretty...
He looked undead.
He was a little chunky when we got to him. We, despite all our powers, were not prepared. We came expecting a negotiation and at worst a fight with a bunch of mortals. We were not adequately armed for an undead dragon. We maybe could have taken him if it had not been for the Blight. Every Invarian that died came back as a shade, and we were forced to retreat. We couldn't get the orb from the palace, and we never made it back. The Blight spread across the peninsula, and our hopes of getting there and retrieving it became slimmer and slimmer. Eventually, I helped to found the paladins here. We sealed off the mouth of the valley, and I did this. And I guess that was sort of that for that round. Another draw.
Now they have Ontaxius. Now they have a staff that was a remnant of your war. Now they have the Star Spire in Neferia. We know where Silaraxis is. I don't suppose You have any knowledge of a secret way into the palace?
Jesus. I don't, I'm sorry.
That was too much to hope for anyway. Plan B? Plan
Teleport
C?
and hope for the best.
Plan F then.
It's always plan F anyway. Rowan will look at Corey. Do you really think we can do this? Not just... She motions to her friends. But the people now. The whole world now. Everyone who's working towards this. Can we do this? Is it worth it?
Yeah. I think you can. And I think it is.
We do fix things. That void. That's where everybody who's died since is gone, right?
It's really Maka's area of expertise, but that's probably about the long and short of it.
They get to go where they're supposed to if we fix things. Yeah?
Yeah.
How to do it.
Sure do.
Rowan thinks of everyone that Malark killed that night and just starts nodding.
The one thing
Yes.
that's comforted me for 10 long years is that my little sister, she died, went somewhere nicer. And she didn't. So, I'm gonna make sure she goes where she's supposed to. Die trying myself. And my dad. And Zalzaveth. And everybody else.
Corey looks at you, Rowan, and she goes, "Well, kiddo, getting to be about that time."
Don't you gotta talk to the Grand Marshal? Should I just go get the Grand Marshal?
No.
Don't curse in front of your great-great-great-grandmother. It's not polite.
I mean, I did, but...
I mean, I already did a couple times, but directly at her seems a little bit inconvenient and impolite.
She like pushes back her chair and kind of moves over and comes over close to you, and she puts her elbows on the table and kind of leans in, and she says, "Run. I don't mean to put the pressure on, but we are out of time.
Yeah.
And more than that, I've been 10,000 years, along with the others, trying to find the right people. The ones who could fix this where we couldn't. You're gonna have to trust me when I say I know what I'm doing. And I wouldn't be sitting here ready to give you this power if there were anyone else. Now, the last 10,000 years or the next 10,000 years that I thought could do it.
Man, you really are part of this family tree. Jesus, with the pressure. God. And Rowan will stand up to be eye to eye with her because she will.
Before you transfer your power, one last question. Can you sense other people who can call the power of the dawn? Do you know if Nuala Trueheart is still alive?
She is.
She's never going to forgive me.
For what? What did you do?
She's been looking for her for a very long time.
I feel like, no offense, I feel like that's on her. And I point at Corey.
She goes, said, I told you I was working on other contingencies.
Yeah, I think given the timeline of when Nuala was here and then leaving and then I got here and all, I feel like those contingencies were around that time where, he's probably being a bit of a dick at home. Probably a fair time to start laying out some contingencies.
I hope he gets a chance to meet you.
So
Oh, if we survive this, I think that's the first thing that we're doing, I think. Because honestly, I just want to see Nuala scream, because she was always so proper in every training, and that's the only time I ever saw her, so I think it'd be kind of funny. Yeah.
He must have changed after leaving. She was a very... silly. Proper, yes, but silly.
She kept... I only saw her in very certain trainings, and there was no room for that there.
Fair enough. Sorry, taking up time.
Crap. Okay. Well, this is one way to meet family. Surprisingly enough, family that seems to like me.
She holds out a hand.
I will take her hand.
Okay. Here we go. And much in the same way that Zalzaveth passed his divine spark to Alar, you see it move from her, between her, kind of coalesce into this, like, perfect cluster of, like, brilliant light and pass into you. And you feel it fill you, much the way that you felt the righteous fire of the light burn through you for the first time. You feel it now again 100-fold. And when it fades away, you find that you are warm and you feel complete, as if this piece was always sort of missing, but you didn't realize it from your understanding of this power that you have. And now you feel it fully at your fingertips, ready to respond to your beck and call. You also feel, weirdly enough, a bit of a dizzying sensation as you realize that, like, your perception, your sense of self expands beyond the confines of your physical form. Like a pin with a string in it, intangible but very much real. You can feel yourself connected to the others. And Andesius outside the door, the High Cleric, the other paladins in the Dawn Fort, others in Lira at large, you can feel people with latent potential for the light all around. That sense kind of fades into the back of your mind, just sort of this like extra peripheral feeling that you have. You also notice that you are more acutely aware of the opposite, of evil. You can feel the blighted peninsula off to the west, almost as if it's like exerting a pressure that is trying to like push towards you. That too sort of fades away. But it is, you kind of realize, like a sense that you can call upon if you needed to. Much like Alar, Rowan, you level up, and you are filled with the certainty, even had she not explained it to you beforehand, that you are now immortal. Corey looks at all of you. She gives you like a squeeze on the shoulder, Rowan. She looks at Brahm, at Walter, and at Osrius, and she says, after you go get that rock from that lizard, before you go and try to save the world, you need to go find them, and you need to get yours.
What will you do while we're gone?
Well,
Other than staying as safe as possible, because God help me.
she says, I've been in a crystal for 1,500 years. I think I'd like to go for a walk. And I think that is where we're going to end the session. Good. Alrighty, well, hey, thank you for joining us, those at home who are watching. Thank you guys, my players, as always. Thank you to Jason, the Justin Bieber dog, and Cordis, who filled in for our missing players tonight. I think Jason, I saw in chat, I think he's watching, so we maybe don't have as much to fill him in on. We're going to have to get Curtis up to speed next week, but that is our session for tonight. And
we off next week?
We are not off next week, I don't think.
My notes from last week were the 22nd next week is still okay. It's the 29th where we have concern.
29th, I am going to be out of town. I'm going to be on the West Coast. So next week we should be good, and then 29th we'll be off.
Okay.
But yeah, that's our session. Thank you to our sponsors, Little Dragon Corp and Cardboard Castle. Be sure to subscribe and follow and do all the things here on Twitch. Go find us on YouTube. Check out the other shows that we do. All of that good stuff. And don't forget to come back at the same time next week, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard, right here on Proficiency Bonus, for the next episode of Delve Requisite. Bye!